This is the Auburn Podcast. I'm Zac Blackerby, and on the show today, Painter Sharpless of ESPN 106.7 hanging out with me. Is this your first time back since I kind of did a little bit of a reboot?
It is. It is.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Yeah, I'm trying to do 2 a week. I think I'm only going to do 1 this week, but oh well. Oh well. Here we are. So, yeah, go crazy Cadillac.
He's back.
I'm excited about this.
I think most Auburn fans are. I know that the general consensus as well doesn't have a lot of collegiate experience as a position coach or for that matter, any SEC experience. What are your thoughts?
Well, as soon as it was announced, my instant reaction was, oh, this is cool. I'm a fan of this. But also, like, whenever something like this happens, I try to anticipate, like, all right, what are the negatives going to be for this? Because they're going to come out. And as you host a daily call-in show, it sounds like you kind of got it pretty quick. Because I believe the news broke either on your show or right before you were going on the air. Yeah,
right before.
So
it's good timing for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great topic for to kind of round out the week for sure. But and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I assume lack of experience is the biggest negative for this,
I think
right?
it's the only one. I mean, really, when you think about it.
Let's see. Is there another one? I'm trying to think of one. Because
I like that he worked with high schoolers at IMG. I think that's good. Like with Gus Malzahn, people always sort of think because he is in front of cameras, not the most personable guy, but it's evident he's good at creating relationships with guys that age.
Gus?
I believe
For sure.
so. And I think that Cadillac Williams' time doing that at IMG probably didn't hurt him there. And then certainly...
Yeah, that's not a bad pipeline to have.
He's familiar with Auburn and the culture and expectations at Auburn, and he's been a professional and was the Rookie of the Year. So from a talent standpoint, like, do as I say kind of makes sense if you're under him. It's like, oh, yeah, this guy, he was pretty good.
He's pretty good, no doubt about it. Yeah, you and I talked about this off-air yesterday, and it's not a popular opinion, and I'll probably get some pushback from this, and if you're listening and you disagree, tweet at us. I'm at Zac Blackerby on Twitter. Painter is at Paint Sharpless. But I think as far as on-the-field coaching, I believe running backs is probably the least important.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you could look at offensive line, probably either of the line positions, and then defensive backs, certainly quarterbacks, obviously. Like, those are positions where having athleticism is important. Every position needs it, sure. But at running back, if you're just an incredible athlete, you can probably cover up some of your deficiencies.
Right. Yeah, I just think when you look at every other position, and it's like, well, I think coaching for that is more important. You know, and you mentioned the offensive lines.
I mean, I left out the wide receivers and linebackers. I think that you can make a strong case.
Linebackers for sure, and I think wide receivers is kind of in the same boat. So, and also like Kenny Dillingham, Auburn's offensive coordinator. I mean, he's good with running backs. I mean, Memphis has been able to put some successful running back campaigns out there during his stint as offensive coordinator with Memphis.
What do you think? The other complaint that I got when the news broke didn't just involve Cadillac Williams' inexperience, but also the age and, I guess, relative lack of inexperience that Dillingham brings in. So that's apparently to some people, that's a sticking point.
Right. I mean, this is fully a recruiting move, I believe.
I'm with you. I think when you look at what he has done in the past and Auburn's success at running back, they're probably going to continue having success at the position. I would be surprised if statistically Auburn wasn't a little better than they were last year, just based on the law of averages of what they've been under Gus Malzahn.
And then last year, it's kind of an anomaly.
Yeah. So if you bring in as good or better talent, I feel confident that Auburn picks back up where they were for the majority of Malzahn's time as OC and head coach.
What's the most similar hire under Malzahn's tenure to this one? Cody Burns being the receiver coach? And I know Cody had more experience coaching than Cadillac does. But just a former player coming back, and now granted Cody played for Gus, but I think that's been a great hire. And I know a lot of people are saying like, well, the passing game stunk, but like he's not calling the plays, and I don't think he's designing the routes either. He's coaching the receivers.
Well, similar to your point just a moment ago about this being a move for recruiting, one thing you cannot say is that Cody Burns and the staff who have probably helped Cody Burns, wide receivers may be the most stacked position Auburn has. You could probably argue defensive line, but with young talent and a mixture of a little experience, wide receivers probably up there.
You're right. You're exactly right. Now, is it being utilized?
Debatable. Yeah.
I mean, no. I don't think it is. It is debatable. You're right, but I don't think it's being utilized, and I think you'll agree. But I think Cody Burns has been an outstanding hire. I mean, he is convincing these top receivers to come to Auburn, which is kind of crazy to me. And I think Bo Nix coming in is helping that. Did you see Bo and George Pickens got their 5th star? So Auburn now has 3 5-stars, and I saw that would be if all of them stay committed to Auburn, and really the big one there is George Pickens. It'll be the first time Auburn has had 3 5-stars in a class.
Yeah, the other 2 5-stars already on board, Owen Pappoe and Bo Nix, as you mentioned, but George Pickens, most people, friend of the program, Ben Wolt, for instance, seems to think that he will stick with that pledge and sign with Auburn. I'm sure that there will be people out there that will give you their hot takes that he's going somewhere else. At this point, if I was putting money on it, I would say George Pickens does eventually sign with Auburn. And you're right. When you look at what Auburn's done offensively, I think Cody Burns has had an uphill battle of convincing some of these 4 and 5-star blue chip prospects, hey, come play here.
It's like, dude, I promise we're going to use you different. I promise. And it's like, well, how? How, Cody? How am I going to be used? And then whatever that pitch is, he's done a very good job with it. And I'm sure, like I said, I think Bo Nix is involved with that pitch somewhere.
Similar to the conversation about 5-star, the 3 5-star players Auburn, well, 2 of them have signed. One of them, George Pickens, seems close to signing in a few weeks when signing day arrives. The other 2 5-star quarterbacks, Cam Newton and Jason Campbell, 2 first-round draft picks. So how
about that?
You live with that, although I'd say there's – that doesn't mean anything for Bo Nix. I think it's interesting when stats like that get pulled up. We were talking about this with the NFL playoffs. It was something to do with like the Patriots and Tom Brady's roots. It's like, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't have anything to do with the current matchup.
Yeah, it was with Michael Pappas, who was on the previous show, the previous edition of the Auburn podcast. And yeah, he used the argument of like, well, Tom was 0-3 on the road in his last 3 AFC championship games. And I'm like, well, they were all to Peyton, and like Peyton Manning is not on this Chiefs team. And so some stats are fun, but it's like that does not have any effect on like what's about to happen. Like Cam's success. Auburn fans like to use it with Jeremy Johnson all the time. It's like, well, he was highly recruited and highly talked about, and then he was a dud. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean like Bo Nix is going to be bad. Like that is the argument I'm hearing all the time. Like, well, I'm being cautious because Jeremy Johnson was supposed to be good, and Bo Nix is supposed to be good. So I don't know. Like that's not. It's a different circumstance.
Yeah, you can't tell that Jason Campbell and Cam Newton's success will translate into anything for Bo Nix, or that Jeremy Johnson and Sean White's relative, I think depending on who you're looking at in that situation, relative lack of success means anything for Bo Nix. They're different players with different players around them and a different coaching staff. And it's interesting too, as many 5 and 4 stars as Alabama signs, they send the most players to the NFL,
right?
And they have the most first-rounders taken. But I wonder how many guys don't pan out, because not everybody does. The issue there is that Auburn has missed on some really big guys, and Alabama, their misses probably get covered up because, well, you're still sending an insane amount of people to the NFL.
Yeah, and one of those misses, Byron Coward has kind of found himself back in Auburn news just because of his comments down in at the Senior Bowl this past week. Of course, he transferred to Maryland. And I don't know how his season was at Maryland. I didn't really hear a whole lot about it. But you look at that, and it's like, I don't think that was Rodney Garner's fault. And you're starting to hear stories on like how much did certain coaches want him, and obviously hindsight's 20/20. But you hear stuff as like he was a Muschamp guy, and how much should Rodney want him on the staff? And regardless, the story of Byron Coward it didn't work out at Auburn, and he's going to have a chance. And I think he will get a chance at the next level just because you look at him and it's like he's got everything you want.
Yeah, I'm reading between the lines here because I don't spend time with Byron Coward, but it sounds like it sounds like he has matured, and it sounds like he realizes that things could have been different at Auburn, but things are if he continues to work hard, with the athletic body he has,
Right.
somebody's going to pick him up in this draft. Well, and I know that they're talking about, how much of a powerhouse he is. And friend of the program, Jeff Whitaker, while we're just throwing around FOPs.
FOPs all over the place.
He, he had an incredible, I think, was it the bench press? And like when he was going through Auburn's pro day. And,
Right.
that doesn't translate into necessarily becoming a good NFL player. But I think Byron Cowart's going to test out and measure well when you're just physically looking at his body and his traits.
I agree with that. Yeah, and I imagine he's going to move well. So like your 3-cone, like I don't know what his 40 is going to be. It'll probably be average, but I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And once again, I think his athleticism is going to get him a chance. I don't know where he's being mocked right now. I don't know if he's like projected as a 3rd or a 4th, 5th round guy. It could be anywhere. I don't think it's in the top 2 rounds, surely, but I think any point after that, I wouldn't be shocked wherever Byron went,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm looking right now to see if I can find anybody that's got him. I mean, I just want to see where he's going, but also I'm curious to see how high he is. Like, is he higher than I would have thought? But either way, the point of, I think, bringing that up is he seems to have matured and understands that his time at Auburn, while it didn't go the way he wanted, was a missed opportunity.
In the realm of Auburn football, what else is kind of being talked about every day? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm thinking, I'm not trying to bore you all. Right now there's so much excitement about Bo Nix. I think we're going to be almost tiresome. It's going to become tiresome how much we talk about the quarterback battle, because
who starts at quarterback at the start of spring practice?
I think Malik, because of his experience and because of his time on the team, gets to take the first of the first team reps. I think.
Do you think Joey gets second and then Bo gets third?
Probably so, like if we're just going in order, but I think that Joey and Bo's reps will be almost comparable on day one.
What do you make of people trying to make Cord Sandberg relevant in the quarterback conversation?
I think you have to understand why he was brought in. I think it would be an incredible story if he even came close to starting. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think Cord Sandberg's okay with that. I think he came into Auburn. He probably enjoyed playing football. He was a 4-star recruit when he came out of high school. Then he spent about 6 years away from the game.
Right.
I think you bring him in as a leader, as a more mature guy. I think he probably knew that coming in. And while he was never denied an opportunity to start and won't be denied that, if he's just the best player, he'll play. Like the coaches are not going to keep him on the bench just because of some weird trumped up reason. But I don't think he's a serious factor in this race.
I like that answer a lot. I mean, everyone's circumstances are different, and this guy's like 10 years older than us. That's a joke, but he's closer to our age than most people on the team. So
absolutely.
That, your priorities change. I mean, I would not blame the guy if he's like, hey, I can be a backup quarterback, get a great education, and have a really good college experience. I mean, he's engaged too, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I tend to fall on the side that the players aren't getting a totally fair shake, and I know that you tend to not want to talk about the pay-for-play thing, but my deal is if there were a way we could have put it in place, it probably would be done. It's complex, and sometimes what gets lost in the pay-for-play conversation is that while there are some players who are not getting their fair shake in this when you're talking about $1 billion industry, you also can't push aside what a free ride to a major institution is worth, and I think for a guy like Cord Sandberg, who is mature and has played professional ball, even though it was in the minor leagues, $100,000 education is not something to just blow off. If somebody's going to offer you that and you get to be a student athlete doing something you enjoy, that's a win-win. But I don't think it's a scenario where he's likely to come into August and we're talking about Cord Sandberg as one of the potential starters.
What about, obviously everybody's talking about incoming freshman Bo Nix as a starting quarterback. I think he's going to be the face of this offense before the year of 2019 is over. What about defense? I mean, is it kind of assumed that Owen Pappoe will start day one for the Tigers?
Interesting you say that. Yes, I think so, but also Deshaun Davis, just maybe it was 2 days ago, but Justin put out an article at The Athletic. Justin Ferguson, friend of the program, put out
another FOP.
Yeah, and so Deshaun was very complimentary of Joey during bowl practices and his athleticism, and Deshaun again making waves with his positive comments about Owen Pappoe, saying essentially he wishes he could be around to play with the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that going into that statement, he like hesitated and he's like, all right, I know this is going to make a story, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Joey Gatewood has more upside than Malik Willis does.
I'm with you. I think that it's evident that the potential that a lot of people, myself included, saw in Malik, for whatever reason, has not fully come together. It could, but I wouldn't bet on him as the starter at this point, which is weird because he does have the most experience. When you look at the experience of the three players, though, Joey has a few snaps under his belt from the bowl game. He had an injured hand. I think his thumb was messed up for a decent part of the season.
Yeah. And I don't think he would have played anyway. He would have played a little bit more because of the new rule, but
I'm with you.
Right.
And then Malik, when he got in, it was never in really meaningful situations, and he didn't play a lot. And so I think their experience, while you can't blow it off, is not all that much greater than Bo Nix, other than that they've been with the team for 1 or 2 years longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this movement that we're seeing in college football, though, with these true freshmen coming in and being able to dominate right away, I mean, it's impacted the national championship the past few years when you just look at these guys that have come in and start right away. Obviously, they're special talents. And, like, I don't know if Bo Nix is, like, as good as, you know, Trevor Lawrence or Tua Tagovailoa.
Probably not. I mean, if we're being honest, probably not.
He's probably not.
That's a high ceiling.
Right. But I do think he's an impact player. And it's like, all right, if you're an Auburn fan, it's like if Joey Gatewood starts, like if you're a Bo Nix guy, because I think I'm pretty pro Bo Nix. I think he's going to start next year. But if he doesn't, if you start Joey Gatewood, even though you know Bo Nix probably has more upside, or if you start Malik Willis knowing that the other two guys or thinking the other two guys have more upside long term, it's like, well, you're probably going to lose them. Now, Bo Nix may be a special case because of his father and his tie to the university and all of that, but I just like, unless Joey just totally like is awful at some point and you have the ability to pull him, it's like that's the only opportunity you have to not start him. You know what I mean? And like that has to go through the minds of the coaching staff when they talk about that.
Isn't it interesting now that the change that of quarterbacks, not the change of quarterbacks, how do I want to phrase this? We're now concerned with quarterbacks transferring away. That is a big part of your scheme as a coach, as your plan, and not a scheme that makes it sound slimy. But you know, you do have to be worried about.
I mean, there is some scheme to it. I agree with you.
Yeah, you've got to be worried about who's going to stay on the roster and who may transfer away. And I think it's very likely that if and I'm with you. I think if I had to pick someone now, I would say Bo Nix is the starter, or at least if he doesn't start the season as the starter, he starts the most games for Auburn at quarterback by the end of the season.
Right.
But I do think if that's the case, Joey Gatewood and or Malik, probably at least one of them is out. One of them probably either moves positions or leaves the school. And that's fine. I don't blame them.
I think it's Malik Willis.
I'm with you.
I don't think Malik Willis is on this team next year.
I would say that's a reasonable, at this point, if things shake out the way you and me seem to think that Bo Nix is your 2019 starter, then yeah, and I don't blame the guy.
Yeah, I talked about this 2 episodes ago. I just rambled to myself. But the thing with Joey Gatewood to me is I think he's staying no matter what. I think he would be more likely to change positions than to transfer. One, because his athletic makeup is different than the other guys. But also, I mean, that dude, Auburn kind of treated him like crap during the whole like recruitment process, I think, as far as, you know, he committed super early. Auburn went through different offensive coordinators. And then it's like a few months out from signing day, and they're like, all right, we're going to try to get another quarterback. And Joey, through all of it, it's like, I'm committed to Auburn. I'm committed to Auburn. I'm committed to Auburn. And he obviously loves it. Like, it's like, all right, if you went through all of that, like, why would you transfer now, you know?
The other thing, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying there, not to just brush past that, but I think going back to Bo Nix,
okay,
we were talking about Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. Those are 2 special players that are likely first-round draft picks when their time comes. And then we haven't seen Bo Nix on that stage yet, and so it's hard to know. However, he did some pretty incredible things statistically in high school. Plus, I think you can't count out that he won 2 state titles. I think that's important, that not only statistically was he great, one of the best ever, but also he found a way to help his team win.
Give me wins.
I know as a guy that loves Tom Brady, the stats are there for Tom Brady, but the most important category for Tom Brady is those Super Bowl appearances and the number that he has won. And I think that's important. And someone who I respect put it this way.
Who was it?
Ben Wolk made this point, and I liked his point about Bo, that he may not have as many, like, oh, wow, like that play was incredible, the way Tua can scramble and run around and break tackles and throw up. And then Trevor Lawrence throws this beautiful back shoulder ball that looks like a 25-year-old who's 7 years ahead of him and is in the league. Yeah. That may not happen, but he's so consistent. He's so, he's a B+, A- kind of guy in almost every game he plays in. And you won't see as many crazy highlights from Bo as you probably will Tua Tagovailoa.
Right.
But he's so consistent, I think you'll take that.
No, I think that's more valuable, especially when you have a talented cast around you like Bo Nix is going to, assuming George Pickens stays. I think those guys are going to grow up and probably enter the draft together. Mm-hmm. But you look at it, and you brought up Tom Brady, and if you bring up Tom Brady, I'm going to go with it because I love that man.
And this is a good time to talk Tom Brady.
But like when you look at the AFC Championship game, it's like he didn't really make any great throws, but he won the game. And then you look back at it, and you're like, well, he converted more third downs than anyone in like NFL playoff history. It's like, okay. And then like that last drive, you're like, well, it's like a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 7, like a 3rd and 10, and it's just like, well, those were pretty impressive throws, but you're never at the time like, Pat Mahomes will run to his right and throw it 70 yards to his left on the money, and it's like, oh, that's impressive. But in the grand scheme of things, and really the only thing that matters is like how often can you win football games? And to me, Bo Nix, and I get this from Joey Gatewood as well, and that's why I like Joey Gatewood, but those guys just seem like winners to me.
I'm really enamored with Tom Brady's stat line from that Chiefs game.
Let's talk about it.
30 of 46 for 348 yards. Interestingly enough, though, he threw 2 picks. Like normally, Tom's the guy who
he really threw 3, but D Ford lined up offsides, which is crazy. Auburn in the playoffs is crazy to me with Cody Parkey and D Ford. I mean, those are like 2 of the bigger miscues in recent, outside of the refs not throwing a flag. I mean, those 2 guys are the 2 bigger miscues
of the playoffs
in recent memory of NFL playoffs.
I was about to say, so I'm glad I looked at his stat line. I was going to say what Tom Brady does so well too is I feel like minimizes errors. And in this game, you could actually argue that he probably wasn't as good at that as normal based on the 2 interceptions and the 3rd that was called back.
Right.
But still threw for almost 350 yards and completed 30 out of 46 passes. And then when it mattered most on those drives in the 4th quarter and in overtime, he was a huge part of he was the reason.
Yeah. I want to talk more NFL on this podcast now that I like rebooted it, but I don't know how to go about that. Because like people are listening to this for Auburn stuff, and I love the NFL too. So like I don't know if I want to like rebrand it down the road and just make it like the Zac Blackerby show or the Zac and Painter show or something like that. Just as like focusing on Auburn. But if something else comes up that I want to talk about, I have the ability to. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that.
So I totally sidetracked us from the actual conversation
that
we were having. We were talking about Bo Nix and his, at least according to Ben Wolk, and I liked his explanation. And I think if you're really curious, tweet at Benjamin Wolk, and he can probably do a much better job of giving you his actual opinion instead of me butchering some summary version of what he told me. But I did like the way he explained it, that, yeah, Bo Nix may not have all of the flashy plays and highlights that guys like Tua Tagovailoa and Trevor Lawrence could have, but he's a consistent player, and with the athletes and the teammates he has, I think he's in a good spot to be a successful quarterback.
If Bo Nix is just as good or in the same ballpark as Jake Fromm, how good is Auburn?
They should win 10 games most of his seasons, I think, with the defense that they have, the level they recruit, and that's tricky because you could lose some close games in a conference that has been tough and is getting better. It went through a lull. I think people are taking shots at the SEC right now.
I thought it was good last year.
Yeah.
2 years ago it was bad, but last year I think it was back to normal.
I think Jimbo Fisher has Texas A&M competing for a West championship. Don't know if we'll ever get it, but I think they'll constantly be in the...
He's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a problem for Auburn eventually.
He has proven at multiple schools that he can recruit and coach about as well as anyone else.
And, I mean, I think him in the West and Dan Mullen in the East.
Yes.
I think Florida is going to be an issue as well.
I'm still not sold on Jimmy Pruitt. I don't want to count him out because I think what he did, for instance, against Auburn was impressive. He had no business coaching that team to a win against Auburn.
That was one of the weirder games I've ever watched.
And then I think Ed Orgeron has. It'll be interesting to see what they do if they can take a step forward or at least remain on pace because I thought they were a 7 or 8 win team this year. And they get a lot of their talent back.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was going to get fired like shortly after the Auburn game. And then him winning that was obviously a big deal. So, yeah. Man, I've enjoyed chatting with you, bud.
Yeah, let's do this more often.
Yeah. You can hear Painter and me. We do a post-game show following every Saturday Auburn basketball game. It's called After the Game, Basketball Edition. And we broadcast live from the bar at AT. That's the restaurant inside the Auburn Hotel and Conference Center. So be sure to come hang out with us. That's following every Saturday Auburn basketball game. Painter, enjoyed it, bud.
I enjoyed it, my friend. Talk to you soon.
And, of course, you can follow Painter on Twitter at Painter Sharpless. And he hosts The Lunch Break from 11 to 1 on ESPN 106.7 every single weekday. Cool. Yeah, so be sure to subscribe to the show if you have not already. And please leave us a review. A few of you left a review after the last show, and I appreciate that. Please continue to do that. It helps us move up, and it helps trick Apple into liking us. So please do that. Awesome. Till next time, this has been the Auburn Podcast.